You may be weary. You may feel like the prayers are silent echoes, and the affirmations fall flat in the stillness of your room. You have persisted, you have believed, and yet nothing seems to have moved. But I tell you now, God sees your tired faith. He sees not the outward struggle, but the inner persistence, the quiet flame that refuses to go out, even when the wind howls in resistance. Do not be deceived by appearances. The world you see is only a reflection, a mirror of the consciousness you carry, and sometimes that mirror delays, distorts, or distracts. But what you impress upon your inner world is what must eventually harden into fact. The tiredness of your faith does not mean it is ineffective. Even a whisper of belief, even a moment of imagined joy, these are seeds. Seeds do not sprout the moment you plant them, but planted they are, and life hidden in darkness is still life. You are not abandoned. The very weariness you feel is the sign you have walked far on the inner path. If faith is tired, it means faith has been working. If your imagination feels stretched, it is because it has carried visions too grand for the shallow mind to comprehend. But the deeper mind, the eternal self, knows. It knows what you have claimed in silence, what you have rehearsed in vision, what you have dared to feel real. There is a law, precise and impersonal, that moves all things into alignment with the inner state. When you say, I am, you are invoking the highest name of God, whether you feel strong or faint. And if in your weakness you still say, I am loved, I am free, then all of heaven bends to fulfill that decree, not in the noise of the world, but in the still unfolding of things, in the rearrangement of people, circumstances, and time itself, all reshaped to mirror your inner conviction. So if you have cried and cried again, know that even the tears water the seeds of belief. There is no shame in tired faith. There is no guilt in needing rest. For it is written on your soul that what you persist in inwardly must show itself outwardly. Do not look for signs and wonders in the sky. Look instead to the quiet knowing, the vision you keep alive when no one sees you. That is the holiest temple. That is where God dwells. When you imagined your healing, you touched the divine. When you dared to believe in a better life, you walked in sacred territory. And even if you stumble, even if your voice shakes, the God within never stops hearing. He sees not only the faith that shouts, but the faith that simply remains. The shift may not come in lightning. It may come in a whisper, in a phone call, in a door you didn't expect to open. But come it must, for what you have accepted in imagination is already yours. You do not need to beg for it. You need only to continue, gently, patiently, and faithfully, in claiming it within. God sees your tired faith, and that is enough. Your inner world creates your outer world, regardless of how tired your faith feels. This truth is not dependent on how energized you are or how loudly you proclaim your belief. It functions quietly, lawfully, and unfailingly beneath the surface of appearances. Every image, thought, and feeling that you allow to persist within yourself begins the process of reshaping your world, regardless of whether you feel powerful or drained in the moment. What matters is not how much noise you make in the outer world, but what you continually allow to take root within. So often we imagine that only a fiery, confident, energized kind of faith can move mountains. But mountains are moved not by volume, not by force, but by alignment. The world around you bows to the world within you. Even if you whisper the truth of who you are, if that whisper becomes your dwelling place, the external must shift to match it. You do not need to shout to change your life. You simply need to persist, even quietly, in the assumption that what you have imagined is already real. The laws that govern manifestation are not emotional. They are spiritual, precise, and deeply obedient to the imaginal act. If you sit in silence and feel the reality of your desire, you have done more than most who run about trying to make things happen through external means. The inner act, imagining, feeling, believing, is the true work. And even if your body is tired, even if your mind feels weary from waiting, the moment you return to the truth within, you reignite the creative power that shapes all things. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the choice to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even when the outer world shows no sign of it yet. You may feel tired, and that is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you have been practicing, imagining, persisting in the unseen. You have been walking by inner vision, not by sight. The outer world may still look the same, but that is no indication of failure. It is often just inertia, the slow turning of the outer layers while the core is already transformed. The moment you truly accept something inwardly, the change begins. That acceptance, no matter how faint, carries the full power of creation behind it. When your inner state shifts, your reality must follow. The tiredness in your faith does not weaken this law. Your thoughts and feelings, held steadily, become molds through which the outer world must flow. The law does not ask if you are exhausted or unsure. It responds only to what you claim within. And if what you claim, even with tired breath, is that you are healed, successful, loved, or transformed, then that claim sets into motion a process that cannot be undone unless you reject it yourself. Every day you are planting seeds in the unseen. A passing thought, a repeated assumption, a feeling you return to often. These are not just habits, they are acts of creation. And even if those acts are weary, if they are rooted in faith, they are powerful beyond measure. Your tired faith is still faith. And that faith is the evidence of things not seen, the substance of things hoped for. The world will not always mirror your inner reality instantly, but it cannot help but eventually do so. For the outer must reflect the inner, just as surely as the shadow follows the body. If you can hold to your vision inwardly, even when your energy is low, even when doubt whispers in your ear, you are engaging in a divine act. Creation itself does not require perfection from you. It only requires that you continue, gently but consistently, to feel the truth, your desired state. That feeling, more than anything else, is the magnet that draws all things into form. You do not need to convince others. You do not even need to convince yourself in the traditional sense. You need only to continue dwelling in that inner state again and again, even with a tired heart and a quiet spirit. To delay in manifestation does not mean denial. Persistence shapes reality. The outer world often moves slower than the inner transformation. It may appear as though nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, everything is rearranging itself in response to the assumption you hold. When you imagine something and persist in it, regardless of what your senses tell you, you are setting into motion a change that must eventually be revealed. Delay is not a verdict against your desire. It is often the space in which the invisible builds the visible, the formless takes shape, and the divine order unfolds perfectly. Many people give up not because they lack belief, but because they misinterpret the silence. The silence between the inner claiming and the outer result can feel like emptiness, like being forgotten. But in truth, it is the sacred space where all things are gathered, aligned, and brought together to match your inner state. If you can persist through the silence, you will see how precise the law of consciousness really is. The outcome may arrive through unexpected means, in unfamiliar ways, but it will arrive, and it will reflect exactly what you've nurtured within. It's easy to believe when the evidence shows up immediately. But true mastery lies in believing even when nothing changes. That is the test and the triumph of consciousness. When you continue to assume the reality of your desire, regardless of the delay, you are proving your creative power. The seed you planted has taken root. The moment you stop digging it up to check its progress, it begins to grow. Every time you return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you water that seed, strengthen its roots, and expand its reach. Persistence is not repetition in words. It is consistency in feeling. It is the choice to return again and again to the inner world where your desire already exists. Even when doubts arise, even when the outer conditions appear unchanged, you choose the inner truth over outer appearance. That choice is power, that decision is creation. And the world must, by law, mirror the inner persistence of your imagination. The delay is only an illusion created by the time it takes for form to follow consciousness. Some desires are big not because they are difficult, but because they require a total shift in self-concept. And that takes time. To go from identifying as one who lacks to one who has is not a mental trick. It is a deep internal shift. It requires you to feel natural in a new state of being, and that may take repetition. It may take days or weeks or months of coming back to the vision, to the assumption, to the inner knowing. But if you persist, if you dare to hold on to your inner reality, even while the outer world contradicts it, then you are aligning with the true creative process. You are not waiting on the world. The world is waiting on you to stay faithful to your inner state. The delay is often the time it takes for you to fully embody what you have imagined, for the assumption to become so familiar, so natural, that it no longer feels like pretending. It becomes who you are, and when that happens, the world must catch up. Delay is simply the gap between your inner embodiment and outer confirmation. But the promise remains unbroken. The outer must conform once the inner has been claimed and maintained. This is why persistence is the secret. Not force, not striving, but inner persistence. To return daily, hourly, moment by moment to the state where your desire is real. To live from it in imagination, to walk in it inwardly, to feel it as done even when the senses say otherwise. Each act of inner return is creative. Each moment you assume your desire is already yours, you are bending reality to match it. The delay cannot stop what is already lawfully in motion. The world responds to sustained inner conviction, not to fleeting hope or temporary belief. Even wary faith carries creative power when aligned with inner conviction. Faith is not always loud, confident, or overflowing with certainty. Sometimes it is quiet, trembling, and barely holding on. But the power of faith is not measured by how strong it feels. It is measured by how faithfully it aligns with the unseen truth you have accepted within. The outer world does not care whether you feel energized or exhausted. It responds only to what you continue to claim as real in consciousness. When your inner conviction remains steady, even beneath tired breath and shaky thoughts, creation continues to unfold in your favor. The moment you say, I am, you are making a statement of identity. And even if your voice shakes, if your inner conviction affirms the reality of what you desire, then you are setting into motion an invisible chain of events that must lead to its fulfillment. There is no neutral. I am. Every declaration, no matter how quietly spoken, carries the power of becoming. This is why even a weary affirmation, even a tired visualization, still holds the seed of transformation. What matters is not how strong your effort appears, but how consistently your inner world returns to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. There are moments when you feel like you are just going through the motions, imagining without emotion, affirming without enthusiasm, hoping without joy. But even in those moments, you are not without power. You are simply walking through a season where faith grows roots deeper than appearances. It is easy to feel strong when everything seems to align. But the true test is whether you can remain aligned inwardly when the outer world appears to contradict what you believe. That's where the creative power of faith proves itself. Weary faith is not broken faith. It is still faith, and it still works. There is a difference between emotional excitement and spiritual conviction. You may feel emotionally drained, yet still carry a deep certainty that what you have claimed is yours. That certainty is what matters. Emotion may come and go. Motivation may rise and fall. But if your inner state continues to affirm the truth of your desire, even in quiet, tired moments, that is enough to sustain the creative process. Your job is not to feel ecstatic every time you visualize. Your job is to feel that what you imagine is real, no matter the state of your emotions. Creation does not require noise or spectacle. It happens in stillness, in silence, in moments when you simply sit with your desire and accept it as done. Even if you don't feel strong, if you imagine your new life, your healed body, your restored relationships, or your success with just a flicker of belief, the laws of consciousness are still at work. The inner act is enough. The weary repetition of a vision still draws the future into form. The faint whisper of, I am, still echoes through the unseen, shaping reality in your image. You do not have to be perfect in faith to see results. You simply need to persist. Tired or not, if you keep returning to the truth within, that your desire is already yours, the world must shift. The outer responds not to force, but to feeling. And when that feeling, even weak and weary, matches the reality you seek, you become the cause of its manifestation. The world must mirror what you accept as true, even when your physical self feels worn down by the waiting. This is why it is so important to understand that inner conviction does not require constant energy. It only requires inner agreement. If, even in your weariness, you still feel that what you want is already real, you are exercising the most powerful force in creation. You are not being punished for feeling tired. You are not being ignored because your belief doesn't feel strong enough. As long as your assumption remains planted, it must grow. It may take longer than you expected, and it may not look like you imagined, but it cannot be lost. The seed of belief, even when carried by weary hands, still contains the full blueprint of your desire. Imagination is the sacred place where your desires are first made real. It is not a fantasy or a mere daydream, but the creative act itself, the beginning of all things. Every visible structure, every relationship, every achievement first existed in someone's imagination. It is within this unseen realm that you shape the blueprint of your life. To imagine with feeling, with conviction, is to give birth to what will inevitably appear. The world outside only mirrors the world within, and imagination is the tool by which you sculpt the inner landscape. What you dare to imagine and accept as real becomes the substance of your future experience. The mistake most people make is waiting for the outer world to confirm what they want before they allow themselves to feel it. They think they must wait for evidence before they believe, wait for results before they celebrate. But this approach reverses the order of creation. You do not feel joy because something happens. Something happens because you felt joy first in imagination. You do not attract abundance by waiting for it, but by imagining what it feels like to already possess it. The outer is the effect, never the cause. It is the shadow of your inner state, the echo of what you consistently imagine and accept. Imagination is the secret workshop of God within you. When you close your eyes and enter the scene of your fulfilled desire, when you walk through that imaginal space with all your senses, you are stepping into the only creative act that matters. You are not pretending or playing games. You are participating in divine law. The world may call it illusion, but those who understand the truth know that what is imagined with belief becomes fact. The clearer the scene, the more vivid the feeling, the more certain the result. The law does not discriminate. It simply reflects what is accepted as real in consciousness. There is no limitation in imagination. You are free to be, do, or have anything you choose. And in that freedom lies immense responsibility. For whatever you repeatedly imagine, whether positive or negative, you are giving life to. This is why you must guard your inner world. Do not allow fear, doubt, or limitation to build their homes in your imagination. They will plant seeds and grow before you even realize it. Instead, dwell in the scenes that bring peace, joy, and fulfillment. Walk in the world of your choosing inwardly until it becomes more real to you than the one you see with your eyes. When you imagine from the end, not as a wish, but as though your desire is already fulfilled. You are aligning with the highest truth. You are saying, "This is who I am now," and the world must mirror that identity. It does not happen because you forced it, but because you faithfully accepted it. Imagination is not passive. It is the deliberate acceptance of a new state of being. And once accepted, it begins to outpicture itself in ways you could never predict. People, opportunities, and resources move to reflect your inner assumption. Even if the outer world appears unchanged, do not let it distract you. What matters is that you return to the Imagino Act daily with quiet conviction. Feel it, live it, breathe it inwardly. Make it so familiar that it becomes your new natural state. When it feels ordinary within, it must become ordinary without. That is the path of creation. The outer world is never first. It is always the aftereffect of what you have accepted within. The only question that matters is, what are you imagining consistently? No one can enter your imagination but you. It is your private sanctuary, your place of power. If you spend time daily living in the end result of your desire, you will see the entire structure of your life change to match it. You don't need to beg, plead, or struggle. You need only to imagine with belief and persist in that inner vision until the world catches up. Your imagination is not separate from reality. It is the foundation of it. That which you hold within with feeling and faith must one day unfold before your eyes. God responds not to words alone, but to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is not the repetition of phrases or the volume of your prayers that creates transformation, but the inner state you occupy while you speak, while you imagine, while you affirm. When you feel the reality of your desire as already accomplished, even if just for a moment, you move into alignment with divine power. That alignment is not intellectual, it is emotional, it is spiritual. It is the deep and quiet knowing that what you ask for has already been received, and that knowing becomes the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Many people speak of what they want, but continue to feel lack, fear, or desperation inside. They pray, but from a place of separation. They affirm, but while internally denying. They imagine, but then immediately look around and doubt. The universe does not respond to the words spoken in fear or emptiness. It responds to the felt state, the inner conviction that you already are what you desire to be. The key is not to beg, but to assume, not to wish, but to feel. When you feel yourself to be the person you want to become, you invoke the creative presence of God within you. This is why silence can be more powerful than words. A single moment of deep, felt conviction, where you experience the joy, relief, peace, or confidence of your fulfilled desire, carries more weight than 1,000 spoken affirmations that lack feeling. Feeling is the secret bridge. It is what makes the unseen tangible, what allows the mind to imprint itself upon the fabric of reality. Without feeling, words remain empty vessels. With feeling, they become living seeds, ready to manifest in form. When you pray or visualize, it is not about describing the desire. It is about experiencing it. The moment you feel that it is done, not will be, not could be, but is, you shift into the state from which all change emerges. You step into the identity of the one who has already received, and from that identity, all things align. You begin to think differently, act differently, attract differently, not through effort, but through identity. Feeling causes that shift. It carries you over the gap between desire and fulfillment. Faith is not blind hope. Faith is the felt reality of the unseen. It is the internal sensation that says, "It is done," even before the world gives you any sign. This is the realm in which miracles occur, not because God has changed, but because you have moved into the frequency where the answer already exists. The outer world does not lead, it follows. It follows your inner feeling, your inner assumption, your inner belief. God is not a distant power responding to your requests. God is the indwelling presence that creates through your inner alignment. When your feelings match your desire, you are one with the creative force that shapes all things. It is not about trying to force yourself to feel something you don't. It is about relaxing into the feeling that would naturally arise if your desire were already true. You ask, how would I feel if this were real? And you dwell in that feeling, even lightly, even briefly. That feeling, the one that feels like it belongs to your fulfilled self, is the one that changes everything. You may not feel it all day, every day. But if you return to it, dwell in it, let it saturate your imagination, it begins to take root. And the deeper that root grows, the more inevitable the fruit becomes. So when you go within, don't seek words for the sake of words. Seek the feeling behind the desire. Touch it. Rest in it. Let it become familiar. Let it feel normal. When it becomes normal to feel as if your wish is already fulfilled, the world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. This is the law. This is the way creation works. The feeling is not decoration. The feeling is creation itself. The tiredness in your faith is proof that you've been walking by inner vision, not sight. Fatigue does not come from pretending, it comes from persistence. When you walk by sight, you lean on the world for validation, for feedback, for signs. But when you walk by vision, you lean on the unseen. You draw from a well that exists only in imagination and trust. And drawing from that inner well takes strength. It takes discipline. It takes a kind of devotion that often goes unnoticed. If your faith feels tired, it is only because you have chosen the higher path, to believe in what is not yet seen, to carry a reality within you that no one else recognizes yet. There is a special kind of exhaustion that comes from holding on to a promise that hasn't shown up, from returning over and over to the place in your mind where the vision lives. You keep showing up in imagination. You keep affirming, visualizing, declaring, even when the outer world contradicts every word of what you believe. And this repetition, this invisible work, is what wears down the surface level of your strength. But it also reveals something deeper, that you are not relying on what the world tells you, but what the spirit within you knows to be true. You have been choosing to live from the inside out. You have been building in silence. You have been creating without recognition. And that is not easy. It is not glamorous. It is not instantly rewarding. But it is powerful beyond comprehension. The tiredness is not failure, it is evidence. It is the residue of having walked miles in faith, having stared at the same old circumstances and still chosen to believe they would change, having held on to your desired state even when everything in the world pushed you toward doubt. You are not tired because you're doing something wrong. You're tired because you've dared to live as if the unseen is more real than the seen. And every time you do that, you stretch your capacity for creation. You expand your spiritual muscles. You go beyond the limits of what others call possible. People who walk by sight cannot understand this kind of fatigue because they have never known the weight of carrying an invisible truth long enough for it to become visible. That weight is heavy, but it is sacred. Every time you enter the imaginal act and dwell in the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you are exercising dominion over your reality. You are speaking the language of the divine. You are affirming that consciousness is the only reality, and that what you accept inwardly must become fact outwardly. And when you do this day after day, moment after moment, even while your emotions fluctuate and your energy fades, you are embodying a level of creative power that most never touch. That embodiment is costly in energy, but priceless in result. It is not your job to constantly feel inspired. It is your job to remain faithful to the vision, even when the fire dims. The vision itself holds power. The state you have chosen to assume already exists. You are not creating it from nothing. You are selecting it from the infinite. The more familiar you become with that state, the more natural it feels. And as it feels more natural, it becomes inevitable. The tiredness is not a sign that you're off track. It is a sign that you are reshaping yourself to match the version of you who already has what you desire. When the senses scream the opposite, when results are delayed, when progress feels invisible, and still you return to the inner world and claim it as done, that is when the true creative act is taking place. It is not seen, but it is real. It is not loud, but it is effective. And each time you do this, even with tired faith, even with a weary soul, you are reinforcing a bridge between the present and the promise. That bridge cannot collapse if you keep crossing it with conviction, no matter how heavy your steps feel. The weariness is not a signal to give up, but a marker that you are walking where only the bold dare to walk.